80 to 95% of AI implementation fail. Today I will explain why is that the case from a practitioner who implemented over 30 plus systems for different businesses. And yes, I come clean and say some of our systems failed as well, but today I will explain what we are doing right now to make sure that that doesn't happen again. So if you're thinking about investing in AI training or AI implementation for your business, you know where to look for, and you will save a lot of money and headaches by watching this video. If this is your first time here, I'm Ricardo. I'm the founder of Uplifted Consulting. We help companies integrate AI across sales and marketing teams. This channel, I document different builds and different personal thoughts around the space when it comes to AI projects, and AI for sales and marketing. Every document like this one is within the description. You can find that either through the link itself or through the playbooks. If you download that, you will be added to my newsletter. I promise I won't spam you. You will receive a weekly email from me with some practical ways to implement AI, as well as a few videos and resources that might be useful. With that said, let's get started. So, project expectation versus reality. Ideally, what we would expect from every kind of projects in the AI world would be start, build, everything works perfectly, and project is complete, right? But at the end of the day, this is not even close to the truth, and this is not the case for in real life. And I will explain why. There are a couple of things that are happening. So here's what actually happened. You maybe think you have a specific process that you mapped out, but when you start building, you discover that there are different odds within that specific process. This is an example of kind of system that we build for a lot of company, which is an AI system for lead qualification. This in practice sound very simple, and it actually is if you really wanted to. But there are a little bit of questions that you need to start thinking about. What is a qualified lead to you? Like, what is your specific definition? What happens after the qualification? Who gets notified? How? When? Through Slack, email, WhatsApp, whatever. What if the qualification criteria change next month, for example? So as you can see over here, those are things that are not actually AI system decision, but strategic decision on the business level. So all of a sudden, what you are doing is you are not building AI systems, but what you are doing is you are building a lead management process. So you are effectively a consultant before being an actual AI helper, because at the end of the day, every kind of work within the AI space start with the consulting side of things first, and then goes into the building side. This is one of the major issues that I had in the past, to be honest. I started and jumped straight to project without any consulting basis, and that is good because it gives you a lot of velocity at the start, but after the first period of implementing something, you get stuck because of different requests that might be happening. And yeah, as I mentioned over here, the majority of the work that we need to do is not about the building itself or the creating the workflow, but is mostly around the strategy and the different things that might happen because of that. So the planning, the understanding what we need to build, the understanding how we need to build that in terms of like what would be the architecture, what would be context engineering, those things like that, and understanding what are the things that we need to build in order to be ROI positive. Here I have a video that I did a few days back, especially related to that. So yeah, as I mentioned here, it's about process mapping, understanding each of the steps, but not only at the like if then level and mapping the process in a spreadsheet, but also on about talking with the different people involved with the process to get an understanding from them and get the buy-in from them in order to understand how to restructure the specific process with AI. This is especially important if you are dealing with a big process that has a lot of moving parts over here. So yeah, that is one single component over here, this process mapping and the aspect of scoping out really clearly what is the process, understanding the different use cases, before going forward and starting with the building side of things. After that, there's the part related to AI overuse. So what I mean by that is, let me give you an example with the sales call analysis, which is a system that we built fairly recently for a client. So this client, for example, wants to analyze the calls for different SDRs and get insights out of that. This is all cool, right? But at the end of the day, with this process itself, the use of AI is really reduced. 90% of the work that we are doing over here is not actually AI related. So as I mentioned over here, the things that we need to do is we need to make sure that we have a system to record the calls or tools to record the calls. We need to store the calls in specific places. That means either storing the video call or storing a transcript of the call. We need to create the workflow, which is like the actual part where the full AI will be involved. And then we'll need to store the different transcripts, sales analysis, different things in a way that AI can access and can generate insights out of that. So this means actually creating an AI knowledge base. So over here, of all the different things that I mentioned, only one of the four is actually AI related over here. So the rest of that is about data collection and how we are collecting and storing data, and the actual workflow is just one single component on that. And on top of that, when we are going in depth into that single component into the workflow, the AI elements within that specific workflow needs to be added strategically. That what I mean by that is that we need to make sure that the AI is only added when it's really needed, and we cannot solve the problem in any other way. So over here, this is the example of the workflow, and this is an example of the workflow for a sales call analysis that we built. This is pretty complex, but the elements where we placed AI over here are just two at the end of the day. We place that at the end over here, which is where the whole AI transformation and AI sales call analysis is. And then we place this over here, which acts as a backup if the information is not found directly within the CRM. So as you can see over here, this is fairly limited in terms of use AI. And most of the things that we have over here are about collecting data or transforming data or getting information and updating different information. So that is all the things over here. The next step, which is really important for every single process, is about defining success. So um, the reason why I'm mentioning this is, and this is an example of a conversation that you could have with a client, where a client maybe doesn't have full context on what would be the success for a project. They would say it should work well, it should be accurate, but it doesn't have a specific percentage to be accurate. Things about 80%, 95%, 99%. The reason for that is the way you build in the system and the way you are making sure that you are at 80%, 95%, or 99% could be really different over here. And this means more iteration, more testing, and more work overall. So yeah, that is a really big problem here. And to be honest, what happened in the past from us for some clients is that we were building some solution, and those solutions were never finished because of this actual thing, because we didn't took the time at the beginning to define what success looked like. And so a response could look good, and another response could look bad. In this work, it's really important to define quantitative success criteria that me, you, and everyone can actually judge, so that we can define a project as completed. And this is something that needs to be included within the scoping of the contract, within the scoping of the project, as well as within the contract. So that is, yeah, that is why it's important. The way this is done is through something called evaluations. And this is about establishing those kind of things as soon as possible. Evaluation essentially is taking a subset of data and performing an analysis of that data manually. And I know this word might scare some of you, but yeah, manually, in order to understand whether that specific response that we got from AI is good or not. So, for example, for a sales call analysis, that might be we have one spreadsheet with two columns. We have one column which is the transcript and one column which is the summary. Within the summary, we would need to have an example of what a good summary would look like based on the transcript that we have. And we will need to have a couple of examples on that. This is this is something that is needed in any single AI project, especially when you need to define success, because what you are doing then is you are comparing the results that you are getting from a system directly to the data set, to the evaluations that you created. This can be done in this way where this is done prior, or another thing that could be done is this could be done within the project itself. So you, for example, run the first batch, run the first test on the structure on like the sales call analysis, and you have a set of sales calls. You analyze the results, you put them directly within the file, and that file get dissected and actually analyzed very thoroughly to understand um, what is good, what is bad, how this is the perfect response that you could have. And yeah, at the end of the day, one thing that you are doing over here is you are evaluating the responses that you get within the LLM to the actual data sets that you have over here. So in this way, you have some kind of data to compare against. Yeah, that is something that is used over here called cosine similarity. I don't know if you are that interested in that. It's a deeply technical matter, but if you want, I can make a video and explain that into more detail. Other element over here is edge cases. So with every single AI project, you can do all the planning in the world. You can define every single possible error, failure, or whatever the case might be, and try to prevent that. No matter what, errors are gonna happen. I think over here, what is really important is to define that up front and say to every single client at the beginning of a project that errors are inevitable and are gonna happen, not because we haven't planned for that, but we because we cannot know everything about any API or about any data transformation or about any single process. So this is something that needs to be included within the project and needs to be explained. If you don't have this kind of element over here, you might receive a um, finalized system or a semi-finalized system, but what you get in the end is something that is not good based on what you see. You see a lot of errors and things of the nature. So instead of doing that, instead of having this kind of problem, I think the best approach over here is define this up front by speaking clearly with the client, and then secondly, using an MVP approach. So the MVP approach here means um, giving a first structure, first version of a system to the client to test out, see whether they find some errors, mention that they probably gonna find some errors, and that is normal, and make sure that you use that data to iterate and improve on the system. In that way, you are actually collaborating and improving over time the system, and you are not working in the dark, like 1 month, 2 months, whatever the case. Give the system to the client, and then the client suddenly sees an error, and it's your fault because you haven't created the system in a good enough way. So I think this is really important and something that needs to be mentioned. The last component over here is something related to training, and something that I started to do right now for every single workflow and every single system that we are building for clients since the past 1 year or so, more or less. The reason for that is that the worst system over here is an implemented system that no one uses, right? So generally what happens is that a lot of people resist the change. So the goal for us is always to help familiarize the team members with the system, explain the system to them, either on a call or by giving them videos, training, and then asking for feedback on the system, especially on the people that need to use the system on a day-to-day basis. The reason for that is that um, essentially, if no one is using the system, you spend a lot of time and money in building something, but yeah, but people don't actually use that, and that is actually very problematic. So the good training and the good taking the time to talk with the team and having an understanding of what are the problems and different things, which is done at the beginning over here in the initial phase of the project mapping, is very critical in order to make a project go really well. So those are a couple of things, a couple of realities. I think a lot of people don't actually mention this kind of things. A lot of people just like focus on like building the system, which sounds cool, but if you really try to apply that system into a real business, you see that the system actually doesn't work. So if you're interested in building something, some systems or some AI structures with me, link is in the description. We can talk about that. And with that said, hope this video was useful. Let me know in the comments. Talk to you soon.